welcome back to a new episode of Vinyl Community Fridays. I know that usually I just talk about vinyl and stuff, but I saw a really cool tag that someone did, and it was just all about prog, and I think the name of the channel was the Vinylverse. So thank you. I'm not sure if you created it or not, but that's where I found the tag. So I thought that it'd be interesting to have two different perspectives for this tag. So I guess we can start now because there are 20, so there is going to be 40 albums being talked about today. So the first prompt was, what was the album that got you into progressive rock? So mine was 2112 a few years ago. I found this album and I fell in love with it instantly because it was very cool and I'd never really listened to long music before. And there my love of prog started. So that's my one.
My one takes you back a few years. The Yes album. Got at school, got this album, who I shared a room with, and I thought, oh, it looked quite good and everything like that. And he played it. It just come out, and it's just magnificent. And it really got me into the prog scheme of things, you know, especially Yours Is No Disgrace and Starship Troop, which I adore. So this is the album that got me into progressive music, I shall say.
Cool. So you can start this one. The second prompt is show an album with 4 or less songs.
Well, I think if you like progressive music and you love the content of the music, you will also know that most progressive rock isn't 2.5 minutes. No. You know, so it wasn't very difficult for either Neve or I to come up with one. But I'm going to USA. 1974 at the Fox Theatre. Todd Rundgren's Utopia. 4 songs with the actual Utopia theme, which is majestic. Then you have Freak Parade and Freedom Fighters. But they sort of only whets your appetite for what's to follow. The Icon. At the time, I think it was the longest single track within anything non-classical. It is fantastic. There's so much into it. All the musicians, and hundreds of musicians on it, particularly keyboards players, and then the cherry on the top, Todd's guitar, Todd's voice. So I'm going Utopia, Todd Rundgren's Utopia, as this particular category.
Okay, so mine is, everyone's going to be familiar with this one. I think you're a pretty big fan of this album as well. My choice was Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, only 2 tracks. It took me a while to pick because I could have picked Tubular Bells or anything like that, but I went with this one because this is the one I've been listening to a lot lately. As I said, two tracks, 2 sides, great album, great musicianship, and very theatrical, and I like that. And this copy that I've got, Dad, this is the one that I got yesterday, got the original.
Oh, the newspaper. Yeah, very good.
So this is
a great album.
So that is the second prompt. So the next one, I'll go first this time, is an album that's on the Vertigo label, and I think most people are familiar with Black Sabbath being on the Vertigo label, but we were looking for prog albums. So I chose this one. I'll take the thing off. This is my choice, Aphrodite's Child, 666. Great album, great 3-piece band. Yeah, some great prog that if you don't know about. I think this is a double album as well, so this is fantastic. And what's your pick, Dan?
My pick is a band that came from just down the road from us in Esher, and lamentably they didn't last long in the 70s because they were very good. Gracious.
It's quite an unknown album, that.
It's this is a repress which is coming out of France, so it's not on the Vertigo.
But it was originally released.
Originally it was recorded on the Vertigo label, so this is Gracious.
Lovely.
Or explanation.
So the next prompt is an album with epic keyboards. We could pick literally any prog album. So what did you pick for this one, Ned?
For me, everything you say is absolutely true, Neve, but for me it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Tarkus, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Keyboards wise, this is Keith Emerson at the top of his game. This is an unbelievable album, and his wizardry on the keyboards is absolutely exemplified in this album. I was obsessed with it when it first came out, and as the years have passed, I've sort of not really listened to it, and then my daughter got into prog rock, and then she started getting into Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I thought, oh, I like them. And then I started listening to it again, and it is wondrous. So this is Tarkus by Emerson,
So it's
Lake
aged well for you.
Oh yeah, ageless. It's ageless.
So my next one should, again, not a shocker. Talking of wizards, Close to the Edge by Yes. Got some of the best keyboards work I've ever heard. Rick Wakeman at his finest. Probably my favourite moments of his are on this album, especially in the title track with the church organ bit towards the end. I think that's just one of the most majestic things ever. So Close to the Edge, and it is my favourite Yes album as well. So the next one is show an album is this prog. So I assume that means something that maybe not everyone would consider progressive rock, but you personally, or me personally, would consider. So my choice is Kate Bush. A lot of people, including my friends, don't really think that Kate Bush is very prog, but just the whole theatre of her music, her voice, and just the way her music kind of is, it just screams progressive rock, especially from this album, her first album. Maybe not so much as she went into the 80s, that got a bit more kind of like pop proggy kind of stuff, but this, I mean, Wuthering Heights is very proggy. And it's just a fantastic album, and she has a great voice, and I love everything about this album, and I think that it could be considered prog, but a lot of people wouldn't consider Kate Bush prog. What about you?
Well, obviously I always try and fit this band into every single category we do. So here it comes, Terrapin Station by the Grateful Dead. There's a lot of people who think that nothing the Dead has done has been in any way progressive. They are, of course, wrong. And they made several what I would call seminal progressive albums. You know, not least Blues for Allah, with the Blues for Allah suite at the end, and then also Wake of the Flood with the 3-part thing at the end, with Wake of the Flood prelude. But this is it. It's Terrapin Station.
That's the Vinyl Me Please one as well.
This is it, yeah. And this one, the first side is pretty proggy, but there's also a version of Dancing in the Street on this. And it prepares you for the actual Terrapin Station suite, which is unbelievable. The orchestrations, believe it or not, were done in this country in London, and Jerry's guitar and Phil Resh's bass is just unbelievable. So if anyone says to you, the Grateful Dead do not do prog, they're wrong. Terrapin Station, the Grateful Dead.
So the next prompt is show a prog album from a German progressive rock band. So you can go first for this one.
Yep, and it's not really that difficult for me. I love this group. It's real electronic progressive music.
Yeah.
And it is an abiding classic. It is so brilliant. Tangerine Dream, Fever. This is an unbelievable album. It's set in about 3 or 4 parts, but it's just mesmeric. I mean, it just goes to show you what a good businessman that Richard Branson was, because he was the person who saw Tangerine Dream playing their music out in Germany. As a few albums, I think Zeit, and before that were also in a German label, and then he signed them up on an album deal on Virgin Records, and this was the first one, and boy did they start off really well. This is an unbelievable album. So this is Fedra by Tangerine Dream.
My pick is, maybe you're not so familiar with this, but I think a lot of my viewers will be. I picked Ocean by Eloy. This is a really great kind of lesser known prog band. I mean, I was going to pick Can, but then I thought I might just go with Eloy because I don't talk about them much on my channel. But Poseidon's Creation was one of the first tracks I heard from this album, and I fell in love with it. some great progressive rock there. If you don't know this album or don't know this band, definitely check them out. They
They're
are
good,
very good. Yeah. Next prompt is show an album from a band from the UK, which could be pretty much anything in my collection. But I went with probably my favourite prog band, Trilogy, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. UK band. There we go.
Yeah, very good.
What about you, though?
Well, I'm going a bit later. I'm going to go from the wonderness that is Forever Porcupine Tree. I could have gone Fear of a Blank Planet, but then I really pushed that a lot and I love it. So what I'm going to do now is put his twin brother on, because this is awesome. This is In Absentia by Porcupine Tree. And there's just so much stuff on this. It's just absolutely unbelievable. In the first part of it, I just think the sound of music, just all of it is just fantastic. This is, as an old man, this stands together with the epic progressive albums from bands like Yes and Genesis and Jethro Tull. This is how great it is. In Absentia by Porcupine Tree.
So the next prompt is show an album from a US and American band, a prog band. So what's your window?
Again, probably not such a screaming shock, this one as well. Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta. From the beginning to the end of this album, it is unbridled genius. It is just one of the truly great modern progressive albums, together with Deloused and the Bedlam in Goliath. I mean, I love Porcupine Tree. I mean, if you just take away the Widow on this, and you've got so many absolute classic tracks in this. It really is. It's just mind-blowingly good. And so this is Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta.
Alright, so my pick won't be too shocking, to be honest, because it's very well known, but I'm going with Dream Theater. This is Black Clouds and Silver Linings. This is slowly becoming my favourite Dream Theater album. I listen to it a lot. The Count of Tuscany. I used to listen to that song every night before I went to bed, because I just loved it that much. I really love Dream Theater. I really love this album. We actually had the chance to see them live, so I'm really happy about that. We saw them just before the lockdown, so they are a great American prog band that you're all probably familiar with already. So this is a great album if you haven't heard it already. So next one is a gateway prog album. So I guess something that you would give to someone if you want to get them into prog, or an album that would lead them getting into prog. I picked, obviously, the classic In the Court of the Crimson King. It's such a varied album, as I've mentioned before. I think there's something in this for everyone who wants to get into prog. There's the jazz elements, there's the hard rocky kind of elements of 21st century Schizoid Man, there's the jammy sections of people who like long extended jam music, and obviously the jazzy bits for people who like jazz. It's such a great album to get into, and it's not too difficult. It's got acoustic acoustic moments on it that are very good and easily accessible, but this is definitely one that I'd give to someone, because I think this is the album that screams progressive rock. But you see this album and you think this is the face of progressive rock. So that's my pick. What about you, Dad?
Well, my pick is an album which sold millions and millions and millions and millions of copies worldwide. It was sprungboard by a clip from a horror film in the early 70s called The Exorcist. And it's beautiful, and it's accessible, and it's wonderful. And I think it truly is a gateway album for people to get into the progressive rock group. So without further ado, I present you Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield. This is obviously takes part. There's two parts in it, but it's so beautiful, melodic. It's quirky. It's humorous, and it's such good listening, and it makes ambient music a thing that is of rare beauty. So this is the gateway album for me, Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield.
Next one is a good one. So, show an album that features Bill Bruford on drums. So you could pick anything from Yes, King Crimson, or any of the kind of solo
UK,
stuff. UK,
yeah.
the Bruford solo stuff. So what have you picked, Dan?
I'm going back to what I picked earlier up through the album that really introduced me into prog. I can't think of anything better for me than to give this 2 accolades. The Yes album. Bill Bruford's drumming on this is just brilliant, and I love listening to this album. And if we're just taking away the great musicians such as Steve Howe and Chris Squire, and obviously John Anderson, Bill Bruford's drumming, out of this world. So this is the album I would say about Bill Bruford, the Yes album.
So mine, I think everyone on my channel knows that this is probably one of my favourite albums of all time by now. I picked Red by King Crimson. The drumming on this is fantastic, especially in Starless, the way it builds up and just crashes. I was going to pick Lark's Tongues and Aspic because it's got more of an interesting kind of percussion section, but this is my favourite of the King Crimson stuff. And he happens to just be on this album, and it's just great. Starless, obviously Red, Fallen Angel, One More Red Nightmare, just fantastic pick. Fantastic drum work on this album. Prompt number 11, so we're just over halfway now. A concept album. So I was going to pick, everything proggy has got a concept attached to it really, if you think about it. But I picked the one that I've been listening to the most lately, and that is Genesis, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Great double album. I'm more of a fan of the first section of this album. The second side is great, but I just need more time to get more familiarised with it. But this is such a great album and such a great send-off, because this was the last album that Peter Gabriel did with Genesis. So
great album.
It's a great way to kind of leave your legacy in that band.
Yeah.
It's just a great album. There's got a great concept as well. I think in the CD version that I've got, it actually, Peter Gabriel's written down the whole story of the album. So I've got to check up on that because I've read it a couple of times. Especially when I did my concept albums video. But this is such a great album and one to check out if you like concept albums, if you like long albums. It's got a similar structure to The Wall by Pink Floyd. If you like that album and haven't listened to this yet, then you will like it. So what's your pick, Dan?
Ooh, it's very interesting that you chose, quite rightly, what a brilliant album, Genesis. But I'm now going to pick an album which is by a group who actually indicted whose guitarist indicted Genesis into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and who were obsessed with Genesis, but also made some great progressive music as well. And I'm going to come up with Fish. Trey Anastasio, Paige McConnell, Mike Gordon, and John Fishman. This is a concept album about a breakup and the psychological effect it has on a breakup, and it's got some just brilliant songs on this, absolutely, and it follows the whole pattern of the story, and then it sort of has this most beautiful end, which is Silent in the Morning, which is a great song, and to me, you know, there is a dispute whether it is or it isn't, but in my view, you know, this particular album of theirs is progressive rock at its finest.
Just so that you guys don't get confused, because I know in one of my videos you got confused. This isn't Fish as in the Marillion singer Fish. This is the band from the US.
This is the band from
Because
Vermont.
I know a lot of people got confused because they were looking for this album, but they were typing in Fish from Marillion. Okay. So that's different thing.
Yeah. Think Ben and Jerry's Fish Food.
Yeah, there we go. It's PH.
PHISH. Yeah.
I think it's your turn to go first. So this next one is an album with a female lead singer or female orientated band. So I think it's your turn to go first. Yeah,
I could have gone sort of down the Kate Bush Road or Renaissance Road and things like that. But I'm again going modern, again in progressive rock. And I've come up with this album, which I've been listening to recently, which is superb. It sort of has a melodic, even sort of quasi Jethro Tull, Middle Ages kind of feel to it, but it's beautifully constructive. And this is the album by Big Big Train, folklore. Yeah,
I know a lot of you guys out there really like the Spirit.
and this is a beautiful album, and the female member of the band, who's wonderful, does the strings and everything, the violin, is Rachel Hall, and well, all of them are great, but she is a great musician as well. So I'm choosing this. I know it's out of left field a bit, but I'm going to choose
good.
this. This is Folklore by Big Big Train.
Lovely. So my pick, you talked about Renaissance, and I'm gonna pick Renaissance. So I'm picking this album because I think that Annie's voice on this album is just so good. Have you listened to this yet? Because this is such a fantastic album.
Me, I've listened to it, but not for years and years and
This
years.
is a really great album, especially the title track. It's one of the best prog epics I think I've ever heard. She's got the most amazing voice, up there with, you know, the Kate Bushes and stuff like that of the prog world that I really like. Quite underrated in my opinion. They're not really in the kind of big names of progressive rock, but they are very folky and they're very good, and they have just some of the most amazing musicians and music that I've ever heard. So this one's probably my favourite out of their albums. I do love a lot of their other stuff, but I think this one takes it for me. So the next one is pick a prog album from a person who was in a prog band and went solo. So my solo pick is the Chris Squire solo album, Fish Out of Water. This is such a great album. If I was to describe it, it's almost like, it's like Pink Floyd meets Yes. It's really great, obviously with the great bass lines and everything. I was going to pick a Rick Wakeman album, but I already talked about the keyboards earlier, so I just decided to mix it up. Chris Squire is probably one of my favourite bassists of all time. This is a really great album. It's not too long at all. I think it's only about 5 or 6 tracks long, but it is very good, and I highly recommend it. Probably one of my favourites of the Yes solo albums, and definitely one that everyone out there should know about and listen to. So what about you, Dan? What's your favourite solo album?
I've went into incredible... well, I knew there were 2 albums fighting for my attention, solo albums from... and I just couldn't split them. I've just got to put both of them because both of them are just so wonderfully brilliant. And I think possibly you know where I'm going now. First of all, this one. I'm going Stephen Wilson, that Raven that refused to sing. From the opening bars of Luminol to the closing of the title track of the album. That Raven that refused to sing is simply marvellous, absolutely incredible. And, you know, and this is a testament of how brilliant this album is. I couldn't split it. Hand Cannot Erase. This is another wonderful album by Stephen Wilson. And it's just so beautiful. Perfect Life, Routine, the title track as well. It's just, I love the opening track on the album, First Regret. It's moving, it's everything. Whereas Raven is dark. It's very dark. This is much more ambient and moving and very emotional. It's very good. So you've got 2 for the price of 1 here.
Both by Stephen Wilson.
Both by Stephen Wilson. The Raven that refused to sing and Hand Cannot Erase. Both wonderful.
Cool. So the next prompt is pick your favourite cover artwork by Roger Dean. So do you want to go first on that one?
Not difficult for me. Being a person who was brought up on the Lord of the Rings, this Relayer by Yes. The artwork, and it's like, if you see it, it's like when the guys, you know, the Fellowship was leaving Rivendell and going towards the mines, and it's just beautiful, and it just sends that wonderful Tolkien-esque message out to us. And
the music's not bad either.
Yeah, pretty good. But, you know, talking about the art and everything like that, and I mean, Roger Dean's come up with perfection here. It really is good.
It really sums up Yes's music.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a sort of like openness and yet majesty. So this is Relayer by Yes.
So that was my initial pick, but I gave that one to Dad because he wanted that one. So I picked my second favourite, which is the Drama album cover from 1980. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this album, Dad, but this is a fantastic album, and the cover is wonderful. I mean, just like it's just so perfect. It's got not much colour on it, but it really does work a lot. You know, it's got the cats at the bottom there. Well,
I didn't see the cats.
Yeah, no, it took me a long time to kind of realise that they were there. But this is very cool. I do love this album cover. I love the landscaped stuff that he did. So this is very good. I was torn between this one and Tales from Topographic Oceans, which is a very, very nice cover. But I went with this one because I don't really talk as much about this on my channel. So the next prompt was pick a prog album from 1971 because it is the 50th anniversary of 1971 albums this year. So I went with Medal by Pink Floyd. I think you wanted to pick this one, but I picked it first. This is a great album. Pink Floyd at their finest.
No doubt.
Early Pink Floyd, my favourite Pink Floyd. Even though Animals is my favourite album, I do love the earlier Pink Floyd stuff as well. Everything from One of These Days up until Echoes.
Yeah.
It's just so good, and everything in between is so good. Some great acoustic stuff on here, and it's a great 1971 album. It's just a great album that probably
and even with the football crowd at the Cop all cheering at the end of the first side of that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, that's
my favourite
Medal.
Floyd album.
It's a great album, yeah. So what is your 1971 pick, Dan?
For me, without any doubt, when it comes to progressive rock, I mean 1971 was a seminal year for music. Well, as far as we're concerned. But if I was to pick a progressive album, it would have to be this one, Aqualung by Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
My mate bought this when it came out, and I was over at his house. We were sort of like playing music. He said, "Listen to this," and I just fell in love with it the first time I saw it. I mean, this is the best. The sort of like sordidness of Aqualung himself and the anti-religious mode about it. Yeah. It really rips into things, and I loved it because the music, the songwriting is so wonderful, and the musicians are so wonderful. And this is the first album, I think, with Jeffrey Hammond as the bass guitarist, and this is to me just a wonderful album. Aqualung, to my God, I think Wind Up was the last one, but I think we both all like Locomotive Breath on this as well.
Good song.
But this is my seminal 1971 Prog album.
That's great, yeah. So the next prompt on here is a live album. So do you want to pick your one first? You already got it?
Yes, yeah. This is Anaesthetize, and it's live in Tilburg. It's a fairly modern Porcupine Tree album box set, because you've got a lot of the newer stuffs on this. I mean, it's got the whole of the first part of Fear of a Blank Planet on it, and there's also other stuff from later albums as well. The mixing is good.
That would be.
And which it would be, but also the musicians again are fantastic, and it's a great atmosphere. I was thinking of choosing in Coma Divine, but I just think this one's a little bit better. So
okay, that's good then.
That's my one. So this is Anaesthetize live in Tilburg, and this is Porcupine Tree.
So mine, I was very conflicted because there's so many great live albums. I was going to pick Yes Songs, or the Genesis live album, or Welcome Back My Friends by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but I wanted to go back to Rush again, 1981, and this is Exit Stage Left by Rush. So Moving Pictures had just come out after this album was released. This is, probably one of my favourite Rush live albums. I mean, it's got live versions of obviously Tom Sawyer, great song, Jacob's Ladder, Passage to Bangkok, which is from 2112, and it finishes up with La Villa Strangiato, which is probably one of the best progressive rock epics of all time. It's just completely instrumental, and it just shows the real talent of Rush, and a force to be reckoned with. So this is a great album and one to check out. Usually I'm not really in a rush to pick up live albums, but this one and also Yes Songs, I would be in a rush to buy. Those are the only two that I would probably go out and buy. But I do love Welcome Back My Friends and stuff like that. So number 17 is the last progressive rock album that you purchased or were given. So I'm going to pick the last one that I bought. So as you guys know, I went to a record fair on Monday and I picked up a lot of progressive rock stuff. So it was just a matter of picking what. And I haven't talked about this band yet, so I picked this one. Van der Graaf Generator, The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other. This is a fantastic album. I believe it was 1970. Just great musicianship. I'm just so in love with Peter Hamill's voice and the theatre and everything surrounding this album. It's just so great, and it's probably one of my favourite Van der Graaf Generator albums. I mean, it's actually got an actual Van der Graaf Generator on the front. Yeah, great musicianship and everything. So definitely try and find this one. It took me a while to find this one for a good price, but I did find it eventually, and this is just a great album. So what's your one now?
So the last album I sort of got, which is quite interesting, yet another modern British progressive rock band. So this one is called Empires Never Last, and it's by Galahad. Very moving. It's literally a terrible. It really criticises war and the indictment of war and the futility of it in the most moving and emotional way. I think it is anyhow. It's an absolute classic, and it really is good listening. So this one here is Empires Never Last by Galahad.
Cool. So the next prompt, we're coming to the end now. The last, a prog album that was released in the last 25 years. So basically anything from modern day progressive rock. So there you go, Dan. You can pick your one first.
I'm going Nordic, Sweden, Opeth, Blackwater Park. This is the most absolutely amazing album.
It's very good.
I'm not a person who's given too much metal and you know, the horse singing and everything like that. This is produced by Stephen Wilson, but it's just a necessity. I mean, it sort of complements the sort of like the lighter moments of this incredibly dark progressive metal album, and it's the guitar, well, the whole music in this is just fantastic. The Leper Affinity, which it starts off with, is very good, but I actually like Patterns in the Ivy, and of course the actual title track, Blackwater Park. And I think this is one of the seminal albums of the modern prog progressive era, and it really is fantastic. And since then, I think really Opeth have gone in certain different directions now. They're more overtly progressive now, because they've sort of abandoned that that horse singing, which I don't think really that Mikael Åkerfeldt liked in the first place, but my god, this is a great album. Blackwater Park by Opeth.
So my pick, not going to be very shocking. I'm going to pick 10,000 Days by Tool. Tool are one of my favourite bands of all time, and this album, I don't have many words for it. It's that good from start to finish, especially, you know, the Wings kind of duet, Wings for Marie, which is part 1, and then obviously Wings, 10,000 Day Wings part 2. Just the most amazing piece of music, and I think everything about the ambience, you know, with the rain sounds. This is Tool being a bit more progressive, like what Dad was saying with Opeth. They kind of started out a bit more like a kind of metal-y kind of band in the 90s, and then with the release of Lateralis, they became more of a progressive rock band. I mean, Fear Inoculum's not very metal at all. I mean, I think there's some moments that are, but this album is just amazing, and one to definitely check out if you haven't yet. It's very, very good. I think people who not only like progressive rock, but people who like psychedelic rock will also love this album as well.
Oh yes.
So definitely check this one out. So the next one, coming up to the penultimate pick here. An album with a great guitar solo. So this one, I was sitting there for ages, working out what I wanted to pick because there's so many great prog albums with great guitar solos. But I went for something that maybe people wouldn't have expected, I guess. But I'm going with Marillion, Script for a Jester's Tear. This is early Marillion, so my kind of Marillion. The guitar solo in Chelsea Monday is probably one of my favourite things. It's very, very interesting album, this. It's a concept album, I believe, as well. It's very, very good. It's very Genesis-like, but not overly Genesis-like. It's very theatrical, and it's very good. And the guitar work in this album is fantastic. But the guitar solo in Chelsea Monday is probably the highlight for this album. It's my favourite track on the album as well. It's got some great tracks on it, Garden Party and the actual title track, Script for a Jester's Tear. Fantastic. So this is my pick for great guitar solo. And what about you, Dan?
Sorry to say, I'll have to do it again because this is joint first because I found it so difficult to separate them. The first one is His Majesty David Gilmour, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, on this album Wish You Were Here. I can't say any more except listen to it. That's all I can say. Just listen to it. It's just
if you haven't
majestic
heard it yet.
guitarist at its finest. It's just so beautiful that words can't fail me. So this is in tandem with one of my first loves of all time, the most underrated guitarist I think there is. Jethro Tull, Stand Up, and the track on this, We Used to Know. Martin Barr's guitar in that is just wonderful. The Gibson Les Paul with the wah-wah pedal, and it really got me into, as well as Yes, this album as well. Much more than Aqualung. I love Aqualung in a way more. But it's that one track and that one guitar solo by Martin Barr, which are just absolutely mind-blowing. It's so good. So, Dave Gilmour and Martin Barr. Dave Gilmour, obviously the more better known. Martin Barr, the underrated one. So that's it. We Used to Know by Jethro Tull.
And the very, very last prompt. So this has been quite a long video. So if you're still here,
hope we haven't bored you too much, but
so the very last one is what is at the top of my want list, or the top of our want lists when it comes to progressive rock. So I've written mine down on here, and Dad's is also on here. So mine is Interview by Gentle Giant. I've got it on CD already, but I've been listening to that a lot lately, and I can't really seem to find it on vinyl anywhere, for a good price at least. But it is a very, very good album. One of my favourite of the Gentle Giant discography. It's actually later Gentle Giant as well. But that is the one that's kind of the one that I was looking for, that I am looking for at the moment. What about you, Dan?
Well, I'm going to go modern as well. And that I'm going Arena, the band Arena. And their last album, which is Double Vision, which is, I've heard it, which is just, it's great. It's very, very Genesis meets Marillion meets the Moody Blues. Fantastic. And I think they're a really, really underrated band, Arena. And there's some good albums. So that's the one I'm looking forward to. It's on my want list, which is Double Vision.
Lovely. So that concludes today's video. Thank you very much to the Vinylverse for showing me this tag while I saw the video. Or creating it, if that was your creation. If not, then I'm sorry, I'm not really sure who the creator was. But this was very fun. I had a great time. I'm so happy that someone's made a prog vinyl tag, because I'm always seeing just the regular vinyl tags out there. So one that's aimed at prog fans, I'm obviously going to be participating in. So yeah, see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Saturdays with Dad. This week is actually very interesting because we're going to be talking about album covers. So we'll get more into that tomorrow. And yeah, see you tomorrow.
Bye.